right, so here we go. So today we have a very special guest. Our guest today is a true visionary in the world of health, healing, and personal transformation. Jordan New is a seasoned entrepreneur, licensed acupuncturist, and the founder of New Vibes Acupuncture and Wellness Clinic in Denver, Colorado. With over 20 years of experience in the health and fitness industry, he has dedicated his life to empowering others to live healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives. Before opening his thriving wellness clinic, Jordan spent over a decade teaching yoga, fitness, meditation, and dance, helping people cultivate strength, balance, and resilience in both body and mind. His journey has taken him across the world, where he immersed himself in different healing traditions, learned Spanish, and deepened his understanding of holistic health. Jordan was also a professor at Colorado Chinese Medicine University. Jordan's intuitive clinical skills and sharp entrepreneurial mindset have allowed him to grow and scale a successful business while staying deeply committed to his mission, helping individuals heal from pain, stress, and chronic conditions naturally. His ability to connect deeply with his clients and guide them toward profound transformation is what sets him apart. But Jordan's story goes far beyond his professional success. Having survived two near-death experiences, he emerged not just stronger, but with deeper purpose, turning adversity into wisdom and using his own healing journey to inspire others. Diagnosed with scoliosis at a young age, Jordan refused to accept a lifetime of pain and limitations. Instead, he healed himself through movement, acupuncture, and holistic therapies, proving firsthand what's possible when you take control of your health. Beyond his clinical work, Jordan is committed to giving back and creating impact. He leads men's groups, helping men step into their highest potential with strength and integrity. He also volunteers as a youth mentor, guiding next generation toward greater self-awareness and resilience. As an active speaker and educator, he shares his insights on leadership, wellness, and stress management to high performers. Jordan is not just a healer, he is a leader, a teacher, and a relentless seeker of growth and transformation. Today, he joins us to share his wisdom, experiences, and practical tools for living a life of vitality and purpose. Let's welcome Jordan New to the Real Deal.
Hey, thanks, Doug, for
Whew,
that
that was a
excellent,
mouthful. I
excellent
breathed through that.
introduction. Yeah. Guess what? Now it's your turn. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Doug McGurk. He's an international keynote speaker who helps people reach their fullest potential. He's worked with Tony Robbins and other industry giants. Doug specializes in leadership training and transformative coaching. Doug's also a legendary rock star in his spare time. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host and the Lord of Rock, Doug McGurk.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, brother. How cool is that?
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for taking the time to connect and for I mean, I can't wait to learn more about your story and just a quick background. One of the things how we connected was through a group we were both part of called CEO Life. And one of the things we can discuss, the fact that you run men's groups and so forth, is the power of community, and love to dig in more with that. But let's start with let's start with the real story of Jordan New. Like, what is when people meet you for the first time? What is the impression, the experience? What do you want to leave people with? And how do you position yourself as the rock star you always already are?
Well, thanks for asking. I'll start as a teen. I've always been had this affinity toward natural health and wellness, and mom was pretty holistic minded, and fed us well, and so going through college, I was I was obsessed with snowboarding, and I thought I wanted to move up there and compete and get sponsored, and live the snowboarder life, and I thought that was my true path. And looking back, life many times told me over and over, no, Jordan, that's not the direction you're supposed to go. You're supposed to go this way. And I was a young 20 something stoner and just not really listening. And so I was up at
It was organic stone. You're an organic stoner. Great.
yeah, 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 it's homegrown.
Yeah.
Um, And so I was up at Breckenridge one day, and it was the last run of the day, last jump in the park. And Doug, do you ski or snowboard?
I ski. I've never snowboarded. I've wakeboarded, but never snowboard. But
Okay,
I ski.
so
I
it's
was
sort
a
of
avid skier.
nice. There's sort of an unwritten rule that you don't really call the last run of the day. And so last run of the day, and I did, and I wanted to go big on the last jump in the park, and it was just, I was, like I said, smoking a little too much and not really thinking clearly. And so I remember going up to the jump, and I was going for a backflip, and I had done them before, and I go up, and I remember going to the jump, and then my next memory was a week later in the hospital. And I'm in a hospital gown in the hallway yelling at my dad. I'm like, I'm fine. Let me out of here. There's nothing wrong with me. Like, let me out of here. And so, um, and my dad's like, where are you going to go? And I was like, oh, I don't know, actually, because I was in a coma for several days. I had been flight for life down to Denver. I didn't have a memory for at least a week. And even then it was really spotty coming back in.
And what was the injury?
And so it was a traumatic brain injury. I think I went around, caught my nose edge, and then smacked down, just smacked my head, and so it almost killed me. And the reason I tell you this is because it ties into the question you asked a moment ago, and I can get into the lessons that I've learned along the way and how it's transformed me. But
Please.
what I think one of the biggest things that I learned from that incident is my purpose here. My purpose here in this lifetime on this planet is to help uplift and support and provide for others and help humans and empower them to live healthier and happier lives. And so, what you asked, when people meet me, what are they getting from me? I really feel like I bring a sense of excitement, inspiration, enthusiasm, and really it comes back to love, man.
Mm.
Every day I try and just live from heart and live from a place of love. And I think I'd always done that, but I just that brain injury really woke me up and showed me that my what I'm really supposed to be here doing.
So how when you were in the coma, how long was that?
I was in a coma. Well, I don't know. I think it was about 3 or 4 days, and then I think I came about 3 days later, and then didn't have a memory for a while. And I was just what was fascinating about that was I didn't think that I had any problems. For about 6 months, I thought everybody else was being dumb and difficult and problematic, and I was really the one who was struggling and not really thinking clearly.
Wow. And
Uh,
had you started on a path like at that point, all you wanted to do was snowboard and so forth, prior to the accident. Had you done any work in the holistic space beyond your mother being, health conscious?
Not really. I mean, I was 23. I was in my undergrad, and I thought I wanted to be a chiropractor, but it was more just like, it's far in the future. I'm not really going to think about that. I was just trying to get done with school, and like I said, life kept telling me, no, no, stay with school. You're not supposed to move up there and compete and everything. So I still love snowboarding. I went this week with my pops. He's like my favorite snowboard buddy, and yeah,
So let's like kind of to get context. So right now, as a wellness center, how long? I mean, you look very young, so this hasn't been, I imagine, decades of working in this field. How long have you had your practice?
yeah. So I'm in my ninth year of
Wow.
training, of owning my own practice. I may look young. People often tell me that I'm 42 years as of today, and
Today's your
today's not my
birthday?
birthday. No, today's not my birthday. That's not what I
Okay.
meant. But trying to play tricks on you. Um, so yeah, I've been before that I was a yoga and fitness trainer. I taught dance, taught meditation, and kind of got bored with that. And I knew all along that I really wanted to go a different direction and study medicine. And the fascinating thing about any kind of medicine in the human body is, man, you can study for a lifetime and still not know everything. There's so much to know that's still there to
Yeah.
discover. And so yeah, I became obsessed with Chinese medicine and health and just well-being. And it was about 5 or 6 years ago I met this amazing mentor, and he his name was Mark S.A. Smith. He's passed a year or two ago. But
I'm sorry.
he led something called the Executive Strategy Summit, and I took it, and I was way out of my league. I was, this is about 6 7 years ago, and I was just at the beginning of my practice, and I remember him just opening my mind up to what's possible. And I was just kind of wanting to do a small scale thing, one on one, and he really opened my mind to just how big I can get. And so I made a dedication at that moment. All right, I'm going to keep discovering how big I can get with my profession, with my service to the world, with my impact on the world. And I'm just going to keep going and growing and growing and growing until life's like, okay, you've reached your peak, you've
So,
made
so
it.
you bring an interesting point and perspective is how do you measure your bigness?
That's a
Right?
good
Like
one.
when you're talking about the growth and all of that and the impact you're going to have, what is your measurement on that? How will you know that you are having the impact that you know you could, should, and will have?
That's a great question. I think part of it would be a following. I really want to reach at least 1 million people.
Hmm.
And when I hit 1 million, it's like, cool, what's next? Could that be 10? Could that be 100 million? Um, and that's part of my path is to be a speaker and an educator and an author and do those kind of things. I think that it also is I've got a vision of what I'm creating with my holistic health center,
Hmm.
is continue to expand it and have multiple practitioners. So no matter what the person's struggling with, they can come and we'll have a case manager that can direct them to whether it's chiropractic, acupuncture, psychotherapy, functional medicine. They're going to have lots of tools there. So um, when I get to that point, I'll reevaluate. But that's the goal is
And
reaching 1 million people.
And from your center's perspective, is that something that you're looking to scale in multiple states and so forth, or what's the vision for that? In obviously going along
Yeah,
with your reach.
good question. Uh, the intention now is just to create one, and once I've really got that dialed in, then I'll consider franchising it, expanding to different areas in Colorado, or possibly just selling it and then just enjoying my life and then starting to do more education and outreach like in the virtual realm.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you know Dr. Fabrizio Mancini?
No, but it sounds like an interesting guy by
Okay,
the name.
he's been a guest. He's a friend of mine, and he's worked in the chiropractic space and holds events and summits and all holistic kind of stuff. So it'd be right up your alley. So it'll be a great connection for you.
Excellent.
I'll connect you
Yeah,
guys.
that'd be great.
Um, so and sort of a insight as like there's a real time little hint towards people building their business is when you're connecting with someone and you feel like, oh, there might be a great connection, like go ahead and make it, throw it out there, and then obviously I have an now accountability partner here, the show, you, whoever's listening, to know that I made this connection. But I'm not going to interrupt our conversation now, but just sort of a learning moment for those of us in the entrepreneurial growth space is givers gain. So as soon as if there's someone you think there'll be a great connection, just make it. Get
Mhm.
If they know each other, and it's a win-win because if he did know Dr. Fab, then he go, oh wow, cool, cool people like I know. So
Mhm.
it's a win-win on that. So
Absolutely.
let's get back to this. So we're going to help you grow your business, of course, both as a speaker and getting your message out there, and then however through the scaling sort of game that you'll do, whether it's franchise or multiple
Sure.
locations, et cetera. But has there been any times where you've had a failure in or an obstacle or a crisis as you were building this to where you are right now? And what did you learn from it to prepare you for those next steps as you're becoming even bigger and having an even larger impact?
Well, I'm in the midst of it. uh, I last year was all about putting the systems in place for the
Hmm.
business, and I've been working with an excellent coach and guiding me just to get everything set on the back end. And we were really doing really well last year, and getting a lot of new patients and bringing people in. And it was about October when the new patients started to dwindle off, but I wasn't really paying attention. And so that didn't catch up with us till February, till last month,
Mm.
financially. And it was So it was just a big lesson of check your stats, look at your business, watch what's happening on the back end. I was too focused on creating systems and employees and patient care and stuff that I wasn't taking the business owner's perspective. And
So,
I guess go ahead.
well, I was going to say, what was it that the was causing the drop off, and how was it that you were you not noticing that, oh, I'm not seeing such and such a patient, or is the
Yeah.
life cycle of your patient or the schedule of your patient longer so that maybe it wouldn't have caught up until you had their next appointment would have been?
Yeah, I think what it was is, like I said, we're putting in the systems for the patient care. And so, really taking care of patients, but what systems we didn't have in place is attracting new clients and marketing and even sales and stuff. And so it was just sort of a big learning lesson of, like, yeah, just pay attention to your stats. And then, so this year is all about marketing. I'm just
Mhm.
blasting it. This is the year to really just expand and scale because we've got the back end, the foundation there. And so I think in ways what I did do right was putting the foundation in place first, so that when we do scale, it's sustainable.
Right on. So when you're making this shift, what are some new marketing strategies that you're having? Because right, there's multiple kinds of entrepreneurs, right? There's like
Yeah.
local, regional, like you have a brick and mortar. Then there's virtual and travel and so forth. And you're a combination of the two, to be sure, from a speaker's perspective, of course.
Mhm.
And then any content, how much do you have as virtual sort of content support that's in line with what you do, and then how much is your brick and mortar where people need to come in to get the service, and then how do you market either or both?
Yeah. Uh, well, another lesson I've learned, I think, is what put me in this predicament as well, is having my hand in too many pots. And I'm sure you probably know, as an entrepreneur or a business owner, that laser focus is really the key. And so if you're trying to dabble in all these things and your mind's scattered, it really holds you back. And so what what I was trying to do at the beginning of the year was focus on digital marketing. And I met somebody from our networking organization, from CEO Life, who's really connecting with some great things. And then trying to do talks and seminars. And then so that's going to be a big focus right now, is talks and seminars here in the Denver area to bring people into my clinic. Um, and so digital marketing and talks and seminars are probably the main two focus right now. And then, of course, word of mouth, man. If
Hmm.
if people if I have transformed so many people's lives, I can say I've saved lives, in the sense that if people hadn't found me, they'd keep going down the path of drugs and surgery and just have not sort of somewhat of a miserable life, and then die sooner. And so anyway, word of mouth is really good. And regarding online and um, the virtual coaching and stuff like that, I dedicated myself for about 2 years trying to build back pain relief programs, because, like I said, like you introduced me, I've healed myself from scoliosis and completely realigned my spine and changed my life. And I'm inspired to teach other people to do that as well. And so I devoted myself to that. That was sort of a COVID project, you could say. And I just kept spinning my wheels, and then I watched my clinic just start to decline, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, I'm putting myself in too many directions. So right now the goal is to get the clinic sustainable, rocking without me there, working myself out of the clinician position, and then devote myself back to online education.
Love it. And right now, are you the only practitioner in the clinic?
Yeah, I've had other employees in the past, massage therapists and other acupuncturists, and we sort of scaled back. And now, once again, putting the systems in place
Hmm.
so that and so this year, going to hire on more acupuncturists, and probably next year, I think chiropractor would be the next step.
Okay. So you are a chiropractor as
No,
well,
I'm not a
or
chiropractor. No, I do acupuncture and train
okay,
clinics.
got it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the different modalities, then acupuncture is your main focus, that like the work that you do, and then the clinic you then bring in other modalities just from a more of that holistic perspective to bring in the massage therapist and you know
Yeah.
Reiki or
Have you ever
whatever the other
received
stuff.
acupuncture before, Doug?
Pardon?
Have you ever received acupuncture
I
before?
have not. I have
Oh,
not.
okay.
Not for any other
Powerful stuff.
reason than I don't know. I mean, I don't have an aversion to the needles or anything. I'm
Sure.
sure I would love to experience it.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So acupuncture is my main thing. I do a lot with herbal medicine and nutrition as well. We've got ways to evaluate patients for that, and we do injection therapy. So whether we've got great immune injections or even just a vitamin B12 shot, um, do a lot with just various forms of traditional Chinese medicine. And so that's the main thing right now. Um, and it's powerful medicine, man. It's been around for thousands of years, and it works,
Yeah.
and it's clinically it's been seen for thousands of years to really transform people's lives. I think what I do beyond that, that's sort of like not something I necessarily advertise, but just coaching and guiding people and just inspiring people to really change their lives, which is challenging sometimes,
Well,
as you
and
can imagine.
yeah, in many respects, I guess they're not, and I don't want to minimize your work other than the analogy of the the hairdresser. Someone goes to the hairdresser, and oftentimes the hairdresser becomes a little bit of the sort of psychologist, armchair
Yeah,
psychologist.
totally.
And I imagine similarly when people come in, you're able to have even deeper conversations to kind of recognize like, hey, the illnesses that show up in your body are oftentimes not to say psychosomatic, other than like if you're stressed out, your body's going to do certain things, and your some of the work you're doing to help alleviate the internal challenges that have manifested through the other stressors and thoughts and experiences and emotional challenges that people have, because we feel emotions in our body, we experience them in our body. So I'm sure that's
Absolutely,
a very
brother.
common experience for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And really, what health? I mean, you're absolutely right. The psychosomatic thing. If somebody has a belief or a thought about themselves in their head, it manifests in their body. And this brings me into a really good point that I actually want to touch on here is mindset. And this is one thing that traumatic brain injury taught me is I remember I was always a pretty easygoing guy. I didn't really have a whole lot of negative thoughts or depression or anything like that. But that made me suicidally depressed. Part of it was the medications that the doctors would put me on that brought in that depression, but then it's also just can be a side effect of brain injuries. And I remember there was just significant points where I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? My brain is like I'm not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very negative. I'm thinking in such a horrible mindset. And it was such it was so significant that I realized, oh, my brain just got wiped clean. Therefore, I have the ability and power to think in any way I want to. And so, what would happen is a negative thought would come in and I would recognize it and then instantly counteract it with the positive thought and change it to exactly what I want. And then I would repeat that positive thought until I could
Hmm.
just say it so clearly and embody that this is the way my reality is. And I think that turned into um, almost a little bit overboard of just thinking really positively and maybe even not even recognizing the negative side or the darker side of
Almost
things.
Pollyannic. So yeah, sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's somewhat
And so,
normal, I think, when people go down. I mean, I'm sure when um, you were first learning your practice, sometimes you may have over used
yeah,
some of your
totally.
tools.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. And so
just
that's something that I try and teach patients is like, hey, the things you just said is like, God, my knee always hurts. Always, because that's a long time,
yeah,
And so I try and reframe it to like, yeah, I'm feeling pain in my knee, but it's healing, it's getting better, and then try and have them change their mindset because as you know, as an entrepreneur and a leadership coach like you are, mindset's everything, man. That's the one thing that separates the really successful people from those that aren't is mindset.
100%. And so, where did
Yeah.
you learn your skills and your implementation and the tools that you're sharing with your clients?
Oh, I mean, I went to Chinese Medicine University in Colorado. I was
Hmm.
actually a professor there, taught there for a couple of years. As far as that goes. I'm obsessed with learning and podcasts, and like I don't even have I mean, I've got a TV here in my office, but I watch a movie maybe once a month.
Hmm.
I don't watch TV. I don't I just I love listening to content. I love listening to things. Um, I think being around other supportive men, you know, as you mentioned, I'm leading men's groups now, and
Hmm.
from partly from learning from those guys or other men's groups I've been part of, mentors along the way. I've got an incredible coach mentor right now who's just he's breaking me down, dude. You know, and but then he's building me back up in the ways I need to be, and breaking down all these old beliefs and stuff. So um, yeah, I think it probably had to do with the brain injury of just recognizing that and then healing myself from scoliosis, as you mentioned in my intro, of just recognizing that I am the author of my life and I can
Hmm.
create my life as I want to. And so I try to empower others to do that too.
What age did you do that, and how did you do that?
The
The
brain injury?
scoliosis.
Okay. Yeah. So at age 12, I was diagnosed with scoliosis from the doctor, and you know they were kind of pointing at like braces and drugs and surgery and stuff like that, and I just knew there had to be a better way, a different way, and so
At 12.
honestly, at 12, you know, I kind of it was more of like kind of this, but honestly, I didn't give a fuck for my teens. I
Hmm.
just kind of like whatever. But then I really started having horrible pain in my mid-teens, and it was about 19 that I discovered yoga. And I went to a yoga class at my gym, and I was like, okay, that was cool. And then I started going consistently for a month, and then I just remember one day I had come home because I used to have horrible posture, just kind of twisted and hunched over. And I remember one day coming home and my mom's like, wow, you're standing up really straight. You look good. And I'm like, yeah, I do feel pretty good. I am standing up pretty straight. And then I just noticed my pain started to decrease. And then the physical was the beginning part of just understanding yoga. And then it turned into the mental and the emotional and the spiritual aspects of it. And so I dive deep for a good 15 years of just devoting myself to that path and learning about the mind and spirit. And along that path, so I would say probably what changed my life more than anything was yoga. And then there's other holistic tools and therapies and stuff too. And once again, brother, mindset. That's really what I think changed everything.
Well, and the it's so important we forget how much our physiology plays into our mindset and how we show because it's harder to feel confident when you're in pain. It just
Yeah,
it
yeah, totally, totally. Yeah,
so yeah, the more we can do. I mean, it's why going to holistic practitioners of whatever is so powerful because it really helps you use your own body and God's tools. The herbology, the Chinese medicines are quite different, and certainly I know they're more powerful, but also just better for you than big pharma.
absolutely, brother. Yeah, you want to talk about that for a moment? That's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I'm really in this profession because I've had so many disappointments, me and everybody else, from Western Med. Now, I think that doctors, I know that most doctors really want to help people,
Hmm.
but they're stuck in a system that's been hijacked by the pharmaceutical companies. And I'm not going to go down that path, but I just think that what's happening now is people are waking up to like, oh, we've been duped for a long time. We actually there's different ways to heal, and so I feel like I'm at the right place at the right time as far as Chinese medicine and what I'm doing and how I'm changing the world and opening up people to different paths. Um, so yeah, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I mean, not to go down too far down a rabbit hole necessarily,
Sure.
but just to give another example, and this may make sense, um, in an unrelated yet similar experience. So my first career was in the music industry, and I remember when I started out as an intern, like worked for free and worked my way up to staff producer, blah blah blah. But one of
Yeah.
the things we would do is part of the gig was kind of helping with everything, running, doing cables, whatever, and soldering cables, and so one day I'm working with the tech, and he's taking apart this old Neve console and taking out the modules with with all the knobs on it, and then he's like cleaning out and replacing all the knobs because they're the pots are cracking and all of that. And I noticed there's like kind of like this black dust all over the place, and then there's this black thing on this. So when you take it apart, there's a piece of metal that kind of keeps it together, and then you take it
Hmm.
off and exposes all the electronics. So on that metal was tape. And I was like, "Oh, is that tape to prevent it from shorting out?" He's like, "Yeah, kinda." But he goes, the Germans, this was the Neve consoles, the old German console. They were very smart. They built things like tanks. They were indestructible.
Hmm.
But they realized that in order for them to maintain their business, they had to do something to ensure that something happened to the parts over time so that they could do some replacement. So instead of using plastic tape, they used cloth tape.
Huh.
The cloth over time would
Yeah.
disintegrate and then fall apart and then get lodged in the pots, and then they'd have to replace them. So it was designed obsolescence so that there
Huh.
was an opportunity to continue to make money, to continue to have repeat customers, as it were.
And you're relating that to the Western medical business?
I'm just saying that it's possible that there are some experiences that they do better if the solution isn't actually provided, that they just handle the symptoms.
Yeah, wow. That's a really great way to put it too. And without directly saying that, yes, yes, that's what's happening. And so, yeah, my goal is to heal people and help people live healthier and happier lives. And I may be putting myself out of business in some ways, but so what? I
Well,
achieved my purpose,
but you
man.
actually aren't, because the truth is that we were given, the Lord blessed us with all the tools we need,
Right.
and yet we still need help, maybe doing the
Yeah,
alignment, doing the acupuncture, doing it's not
totally.
a panacea, it's a lifestyle shift. So the
Yeah.
question is, which lifestyle do you want to have? One that is working at the core and building your wholeness, or just getting band-aids and keep throwing on the band-aids and having the brain candy.
Yeah, exactly. And we live in a toxic world. We live in a world where there's trauma, and we live in a world where there's high stress. And so, yeah, people need that. My ideal patient is somebody who comes in once or twice a month, that kind of like you tune up your car every few
Hmm.
months, you tune up your body, and
Yeah.
they're staying healthy, they're doing what they need to, and they just come in for a tune up. That's ideal. But most of us, most humans, don't make a change until we feel pain. And so for me, I really embrace pain. Looking out back through life, I really like, oh, pain, all right, bring it, I don't run away from it. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They run away from it. But oftentimes it takes people a painful experience to really make change.
Well, and sadly, they live in a certain like they get used to, they get conditioned and normalize a certain level of pain. And unfortunately, it's not until it gets closer to death defying and like
Yeah.
really incapacitating pain versus that, numbness or, oh, I can't, oh, and then we throw the stories out, well, I'm getting older. I shouldn't expect to be able to have the same level of energy that I had when I was a kid and all that. And then yet you see other people who we all see them who are, twice our age, who are also have twice our energy and twice our passion. And, like Tony Robbins is a great example. Tony's gone
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
tons of different painful situations, and he's made health has always been a huge priority for him. But
Right.
like, you go to an event with Tony, and he's on there for like 12, 18 hours. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're like, I can't keep up. Well, I mean, I can, but you know what I'm saying, some people can't. But that's
Yeah.
the thing, that is it is a lifestyle choice, not just
Choice.
not going to
Exactly, man.
getting that magic pill.
Choices. Yeah, and what's unfortunate is we're brainwashed.
Hmm.
I personally don't. I don't really watch news. I tap in here and there, but just we're so freaking brainwashed from media, and that it's normal to have headaches, and there was an ad on the Super Bowl this year about hymns or something like that, and they were trying to make it seem like they wanted to go be down with the system that's keeping people sick and stuff like that, and they were trying to talk about like it's about people being overweight. And then at the end of the commercial, it's like, well, here's this injection, and it's basically Ozempic. And it was just like, whoa, like we just got freaking brainwashed to think that they actually cared about us, but they're just trying to give us another pill or injection to mask the symptom.
Yeah, and to talk about that real quickly, I don't know if you saw this, but those GLP-1s and those uh, weight loss compounds have actually had an impact on the economy because
Mm,
people are buying less junk food, and it's actually now starting to hit the bottom line. Walmart
interesting.
and some other stores are saying that their sales of all those foods has dropped by like 20
Really?
something percent.
Huh.
So, well, here's where it gets scary.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Do you remember Alestrum? That it was
Vaguely,
they
yeah.
were making like
Yes.
it was almost like you could it was like the fat in the chips wouldn't go, it would just go through your body, it wouldn't
Oh
go
yeah,
like, you
yeah, yeah.
remember that, like it was like a little bypass. And look, it's just obviously it's a moneymaker. But what they
Right.
did, they found this doctor, this brilliant guy who is essentially he's been tasked to find what new chemicals they could put in food to bypass the effects of Ozempic and make it addictive again. Because really, what it's doing is it's breaking the addiction to all those chemicals. And once you have that out of your body for a little bit, your body goes, I don't really want that anymore. So it's actually a
Oh,
two pronged experience. And that's my hallucination. As far as I'm that is a little,
yeah,
I'm not a doctor, but my hallucination is that when you remove all of that crap from your diet, your
yeah.
body stops craving it. So
Right.
now you actually get sort of like repelled, by the idea of
Absolutely. Yeah.
having, a Dorito, because your body's
Yeah.
going, ugh, I don't want that anymore.
Right.
And so it's two things are happening when you start on that process. The drug helps you not crave it, and then your body recalibrates and goes, I don't want it anymore. So they need to find
Yeah.
new addictive chemicals to put into the food so that you will
Absolutely.
crave it again.
Yeah. Fortunately, we've got a good person in charge of the health division
Yes,
there, right,
that's
who's going to make some big changes.
I
RFK Jr. Yeah.
God bless him, and
Yeah.
it's going to be such an interesting battle on the big business.
Yeah. They're breaking things down. It's good. It's what we
Yeah.
need. Yeah. Um, so Doug, I want to sort of go into, well, while we still have some time, I want to
Yep.
go into that other, you mentioned in the intro two near-death experiences.
Yes. Yeah.
I
We
want
only
to
got
go into
one. What was the
the
other one?
yeah, I want to go into the other one. There's probably been many more that I wasn't even aware of, but those were the two where I was like on the brink of death. Um, so where do I start with this? So like I said, I started my business in 2016, 2016, and I had met a woman, and we were dating, and then she started to work with me. She started helping me with my business, and then she had been so involved in the corporate world, and I've never worked in the corporate world, so I didn't really know much about business. But and like I mentioned before, I was obsessed with medicine. I didn't get into this business to be a businessman. I didn't get into
Mm,
this business to make billions of dollars. But now I'm recognizing the importance of money, and I've devoted myself to that. But anyway, so she started to take over the business, and she started to really, just run the business for me, run my business for me. And so I just kind of gave her the reins, and I just let her, make choices. And then I sort of, I lost my courage, and I lost my power.
mm,
And so it was May of 2023, and I started feeling kind of sick. And I was like, "Ew, okay, well, I'm a healer. I can heal myself." I was having sort of a bellyache and stuff like that. And so I went about 5 days just trying to heal myself, and then I would kind of sink back into it, and then I'd get a little bit better, and then it'd get worse. And so I really wanted to go to this dance retreat that I had signed up for. And so like I was like, no, I gotta go. I hadn't eaten in like 5 or 6 days, or eaten very little. And I was like, gotta go. And so I went, and I just like on on the second day, I'd been laying in bed for like 16 hours. I'm like, am I gonna die? I think I need to go to the hospital. And so I went to the hospital, and my appendix had ruptured. And so I'm laying on the bed, and I just started convulsing, and like there's like 15 doctors and nurses in the room trying to keep me alive. All my vitals were dropping, and I had this beautiful nurse like staring at me. She's like, just stare into my eyes, don't close your eyes. And I'm like, okay. And and so I hadn't eaten for like 6 days, other than just a little bit here and there. And then fortunately, they brought me back. My appendix had ruptured. I hadn't eaten for like 2 weeks. By the time I had had food again, I was skin and bones, man. I just really, um, yeah, it really just it depleted me. I was emaciated. And so, one lesson that came from it is seek medical attention. If you're having an appendix issue, don't come to me, the acupuncturist. Go to the
Right.
Western docs, and they'll take care of it.
There
And
is
so,
a place, a time and place for Western medicine for sure.
absolutely, brother. Yeah. And so, is my own arrogance, thinking, "Oh, I'm a healer, and I can do better than the Western docs, whatever." So there was that sort of humbling there. But I think one of the biggest things that came from that, after that point, I realized, and me and her had already broke up, and she had left the business, maybe 6 months before that had happened. But what really came to me is how much I had given away my power and my courage.
Mm.
And so I took it back, man. And since then, things are just skyrocketing. And I realized it was crazy. Like, you don't realize how much sometimes you've given things away, and you've sort of sold your soul in a way in a relationship. And so, yeah, if I don't, there's no blame. I voluntarily and almost like just unaware, gave away my power and my courage. And so I came
Well,
back. And so if that's something I can, let me just finish this,
yeah.
and then I would love to hear if that's something I can share with the listeners here, is really just know your worth, know your power, and just make choices, take risks, take calculated risks. And so, yeah, it was a really fascinating experience to just get my power and my courage back.
Well, and from that, how how could you sort of help someone? Because when someone says take your power back or find your courage, that means
Right.
so many different things to different people and
True.
in different areas of their life. So, what are some ways that were like how you took your power back or got your confidence back? Like, was there some decision that you made and you were like, oh, okay, this is how I am taking my power back, and like this is how I'm stepping back into courageousness. Like, how did you do that, or how did you know that you had accomplished it?
Yeah, well, it was fascinating because I didn't even realize it until a few months after that appendix issue. I was taking a personal development course. It was like a 3 or 4 day course, and it was just like, boom, it just blasted like, oh my god, this is why I'm not getting anywhere. It's because I just, and I'm not going into the details of that, of why that came up, but it was like, my god, I'd given everything to her. Um, and so then I was also, after that, I was doing this self-evaluation sort of exercise, and I was evaluating on myself on, there was one answer of, or there was one question about your willingness to take risks, and just step into somewhat fearful situations. And I gave myself a really low score. And then a few questions later, it was your ability to learn from mistakes that you made, and I gave myself a really high score. And I was like, what? That's not even, that doesn't even make sense. Like, that's not congruent. Why am I like afraid to take risk, but then after I mess up or I take the risk, I'm like, oh, that wasn't bad at all. So it was just a really big awareness of like, um, I just take risks. Plus, and I've got a home, but I don't have kids. I'm not married, and so it's like, what I got to lose. I think
Mm,
sometimes that's also a good thing in today's world, is just recognizing that, like, really, what do you got to lose? You go bankrupt, so what? Then you get back up, and you do it again, and like, in business situations, in other like life threatening situations, obviously you want to be a bit more concerned because you don't want to lose a limb or paralyze or
yeah.
even lose your life. But
Right.
that's just something I've learned from young years of playing and snowboard and stuff, of just how to sort of protect my body. So Did that answer your question about sort of
Well,
ways that sort of help me find my
yeah,
power?
yeah. I think the challenge, and especially for men, I think there's so many uh there's so many different definitions people have and relationships with those terms. And it even gets into
Hmm.
toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
where the ability to have courage does not mean, or to have power does not mean that you're throwing your weight around and being in that space. It's actually the opposite. It's that calmness of that ability to walk into any situation knowing that you've got it. And there's this interesting experience we've had through all of these dynamics around personal development and religiosity and all these things, and all these the programming and the things that are coming in, that we could sometimes buy into, like you being on the personal development path. I've been in this space for 30 plus years. But like for you, like what is maybe like the biggest lie you've heard around personal development, or the myth around it, that you go, oh, okay, like you went in maybe thinking one thing and then you realized it was something completely different.
Hmm. I would say that comes back to polarity. You hear these people's like, yeah, you can do it, just think positive, that's all you got to do, and like everything's going to work out for you, and you can trust in God, and yeah, you can do those things, but you also got to recognize the polarity of that yeah, you're going to fail, you're going to fuck up, you're going to make mistakes, you're not going to make it, and that's okay too, because that's where we learn and grow. And so I mean, that's sort of a personal development, sort of a broad term, but sometimes I hear those things. One thing I really do every single day is listen to positive affirmations.
Hmm.
And sometimes I hear these, like I really like the warrior ones. I've got these warrior ones that I was listening to this morning. But last night before bed, I was listening to like, just trust in the universe and everything is going to work out for you. And I was really just like, this is kind of bullshit. This is like, it's kind of like just thinking that, oh yeah, I just trust in God. And I think I did that for too long. I mean, of course I trust God and to guide me on my path, but I gave it all up to God and was like, no, actually, I'm human. I got to use my own will and determination and power and decisions to really make a difference. And so I think that personal empowerment is an important part of that. And just recognizing the polarity of like, you're going to mess up and that's okay too.
Well, yeah, that's well, I guess two things. One, there's that statement, I'm sure you've heard it, is pray as if everything depends on God and act as if everything depends on you.
Oh, I
So,
like that.
right,
Yeah.
it's co-creating. We're collaborating with God. We're not just, when it's like God's will, whatever that relationship is, we hear that from different terms, is in alignment with our basically ourselves, and we are given that free choice.
Yeah.
And it's not like the old saying, God helps those who helps themselves. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't magically appear. There's effort and activity that we must take, guided by God, through tapping into our divine intuition. And how do we get there is by being present and doing those affirmations, or meditating, or praying, or whatever it is that we can do. And each of us, like my wife dances and she does therapeutic dance, and my
Oh, nice.
hallucination is when you had shared you were going to a dance retreat, that's one of the ways you are able to connect to your higher power, to God, is
Mhm.
through some sort of somatic movement, whether it's breakdancing or whether it's, it doesn't really matter. In order to be present to the experience, got to shut out some of the other noise.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my ways that I've connected with God for a long time, is through dance, or connected with my deep self, and really find that flow is specifically ecstatic dance. I used to do that a lot.
Hmm.
And then, like you mentioned, the break dance and the hip hop in the house, and the Zouk partner dance is my thing now.
Cool.
And that is, I mean, if God is in me, then God is in you. And if I can, the cool thing about partner dancing is you just have this amazing heart-centered connection with somebody for 3 to 15 minutes, at a time, and then you let go, and it's like there's no expectations or strings attached. It's just like, wow, thank you, that was amazing. And to me, that's really fulfilled a lot of intimacy with other people, and
Hmm.
also, once again, a deeper way to tap into God.
Love it. And how were you raised religiously? Like, did you have a belief, or were you raised in a certain religion?
Yeah, raised as a Christian, non-denominational Christian,
Hmm.
and then just found that Satan was better, so I went to Satan, and then I was kidding. Um, and no, but it was about 20 years old. I started traveling the world. So for about 4 or 5 years, I had a brother who worked for Continental Airlines, and so he got me a travel companion pass. I was doing couch surfing for about 5 years. I just traveled the world and just
Nice.
had a blast. Um, and it was when I started traveling I realized, oh, the world's much bigger than this little book that I've been taught from, and this little box of religion. And so it's really expanded my world into many more things. And I got into sort of yogic traditions, and then Taoism
Hmm.
and Buddhism, and now I don't consider myself religious, but I pray every day, man. I connect with
Yeah.
God every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's so interesting about that is, for many, religion is the path for them. They need the guidance. Not
Yeah.
like, so it's almost like, I guess the best analogy would be, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. They just don't. Well, they can. Let me reframe that. They can. They choose not to. There's a path of least resistance by being an employee or getting a civil
Sure.
servant, whatever it is. And there's no judgment. There's nothing wrong with either of those choices. Be your own boss, be a business owner, be an entrepreneur, or get a job. Neither one is right or wrong. However, we do know it's a smaller percentage of entrepreneurs versus the just go to the job. And I
Mhm.
think my experience has been that oftentimes, when it comes to that nebulous relationship to God, that uncertainty that an entrepreneur feels of going out there and starting their own business and being fully responsible and all of that, and having to have a different level of faith in themselves and what have you, is kind of similar to, I think, how many people find their religion, that it's almost like having a job where they don't have to work as hard, they don't have to live at much
Mm.
risk. They're kind of given a roadmap that they can very easily follow
Mm.
along with it's like the rest of the people at the company.
Huh.
And
Fascinating. I've
right,
never
and there's
associated
nothing
those
wrong
two.
with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So what I find interesting is sometimes people will kind of make judgments around either the person who says, "Oh, I don't practice a religion, I'm spiritual and I pray and I do what have you," and then there's a lot of times the churchgoers like, "Well, you can't do that. You got to go to the church. You got to go to the location. You got to do whatever." And neither is wrong or right. And my personal thing is do both. Like, so
Mm.
it's okay. Like, I like going to churches and being challenged by different messages, and and get inspired of some other ideas. Like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. So it's
Yeah.
the opportunity to have an interesting conversation. Um, and my personal belief is, and hopefully some of this is under the undercurrent through this podcast and others that people listen to, is an acknowledgement of the necessity of a relationship with your higher power. That
Mhm.
without it, things, you can't guarantee you're going to be overly successful in every area of your life with it, but can guarantee you're not going to be that level of success holistically without it.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating, man. Yeah. And so I take it you have a spiritual practice then?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised Roman Catholic, so I grew up in that dogma and that experience. My father is still a very staunch, like, Latin mass going practitioner. Like, he loves that,
Okay.
and that's his thing. And
Yeah.
and I think part of it is also that's the way he was raised, I'm guessing. And without getting into, there's all sorts of drama around all religions that have some sense of power. And abuses happen all the time because they're still run by humans. And I think as a follower of Christ, and also studying Buddhism and Taoism and all of the different things. I mean, Heidi and I are both master Reiki practitioners, and we like
Nice.
we invoke all divinity. We know
Mhm.
that my personal belief is God is beyond our comprehension. So
Great.
the words, as flexible as the English language is, we're still limited by the language and it's an experience.
Hmm.
And I feel like, the best analogy that I can understand is God is like, the super quantum, crazy computer, and we walking around are like Commodore 64s or like calculators. We can't even process the data and the operating system that God is. We can sort of connect, like there is a connection there, but we can't compute all the data. There's no way we could. So when we do have those moments of divine intuition or those moments of feeling that connection with God, it's so powerful and special, yet inexplicable. Like we almost don't know how to put words to it because there aren't words to express something that is beyond even
Mm.
acknowledgement through the vehicles that we are currently in. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense,
Well
but
said. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. And that's why we must remain curious
right.
in everything in life, but especially with spirituality, and not get so on our high horse that this is this way. And so, what I find clinically, what I've seen is that people that continue to struggle with health problems don't have a spiritual practice. And I'll ask them that specifically, and then it's not my place to stand and say, well, you need to believe in God or whatever. But it's just something I've seen over the years, that when people are more in tune with God or their higher selves, or even than themselves in a spiritual sense, they really have a greater ability to heal
Yeah. Well,
their
because
body.
now you're tapping into the homeostasis of the universe, where
Yeah,
I mean, everything finds a way to heal itself, and all disease, in some respects, is its own function of healing its own disease. Like, so the disease is trying to survive as well. Like it's you just got to have it go elsewhere. But like
right.
it's still functioning. It's interesting.
Yes,
When we say that, what do they say? Every 7 years, every cell in our body regenerates itself.
right.
So the life and death cycle is natural. So now the question is embracing it and guiding it in the way that it's designed to be,
Mm.
not in the other way. So the rotten apple spoils the bunch. So you take the rotten apple out. Is the rotting apple doing something wrong?
No, it's just living, or
It's
just being part of the process.
Yeah, just you don't want it in the barrel.
Right. Yeah, yeah, totally. And
So
so
what
that's
you're doing
really
is clear, like the work you do with acupuncture and all that. My
exactly,
hallucination is
brother.
it's clearing out that energy that would
Yeah,
potentially be the rotten apple in your body.
exactly. That's exactly what Chinese medicine does, man. So you can sort of relate Chinese medicine and meridians.
Hmm.
You can almost relate it to like the highways. And so you see the highways, and cars are flowing, everything's good, and then there's a crash, and everybody gets backed up. People get hurt. People are road rage and angry because they're late for work, and then the cleanup crew kind of comes in and just gets everything flowing again. Well, acupuncture is the cleanup crew. You've got this energy flowing through your meridians, and then you get trauma or toxicity or just stress or poor lifestyle. And then, that's where pain and illness comes, is that chi and blood stagnation. And so then the acupuncture comes in and gets everything flowing again. And so what's really cool about that is we can do it ourselves. So that's what qigong is. Qigong is just moving that energy in our body. We can do it or even yoga. We can do it, but some people either don't have the ability or know how to do it, and so also coming to a healer and having somebody else help you is really powerful too. And so we have that ability all the time. We really are our own best healers. I don't heal anybody. I just open doors, man.
Right,
Your
exactly.
body heals itself. And so if I do my work and I open some doors and you don't heal, it's not necessarily my responsibility. It's something on your end that hasn't quite resolved itself. It's either I didn't open the right door, or there's something else blocking your body from healing. But our bodies are designed to be harmonious, healthy beings. And but once again, we live in a traumatic, toxic, stressful world. And that's what blocks things.
Yeah, totally. One of the That was a great analogy. The analogy I've used in the past because when my wife and I we ran a drug and alcohol treatment center for like eight
Oh,
years.
cool, man.
So we worked most of the clinical and we created and ran the family program and we were a holistic place. We had a bara what's bar, the where it changes the barometric pressure, barometric
Oh
chamber.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Is
Yeah.
that what they're called? I forget.
Yeah. Barometric change. Yeah.
Yeah, we had one of those, and we had our own line of herbs and so forth,
Oh,
and
cool, man.
we did
Cool. Know that.
qigong. We had qigong come in. We had our clients
Man.
dance every morning.
Yeah.
We had club rehab. My wife did the therapeutic dance stuff and did some other body sculpting kind of things for that, and we did these intense breakthrough experiences that were divinely guided, and it was really a powerful thing. And we
Wow,
also
that's
had a
cool.
chiropractor. And one of the explanations that I found helpful was I used the example of the internet, that we're a computer and we could be functioning fine, it seems, but we can't access the internet. And we can't connect to it, but everything seems to work fine, except that we're not on the internet. We're not getting all the data, the extra, connection.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like this one little button, there's one click, one setting that is not happening. And once you open it up, once you turn that on or turn off whatever's stopping it or what have you,
Wow,
then the connection explodes.
that's
So
cool.
acupuncture, chiropractic, all these different works, the qigong, all of that are different sort of modalities, methods to unblock whatever has been getting in the way. And it also could be like a kink in the hose. It doesn't necessarily stop it all the way, but it could be slowing it down. And then where you're
Yeah.
not getting
Yeah.
all the connection, you're just getting pieces of it. And then you're like, wait, something's not right. But that can be worse because now that can be almost tolerated
Mm-hmm.
because you have the illusion of connection, but you don't realize how much you're missing.
Yeah, totally. I often hear, wow, I didn't realize how good I could feel until I actually started feeling better. I've experienced that myself. I'm sure you probably have too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how bad we feel like when we stop going. I'm sure you've had some clients who were coming religiously once or twice a month or what have you, and then for whatever reason they stop, and then like over time they're like, oh, whatever, like, I should probably go back. And it's been a year, and they come back like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I missed
Yeah.
this.
Perfect example of that. I had a patient who was coming to us pretty consistently for a while and was feeling great. And then I didn't see her for a good 6 months or a year. And then she came back and she's like, I was diagnosed with cancer. I got this cancerous thing going on. And so I started working with her about 6 months again. She went back to the doctor and the cancer and the tumor was gone. I was like, fuck yeah, that's it, dude. Those are the wins there. I'm just like,
Yeah. Oh my
it's
gosh, it's
amazing to see
amazing.
that. And so it's kind of like if you don't tune your car up for a year or two, like it's gonna have some problems. So it's important to keep your body the same way too.
It just reminds me of the exact situation that happened. It wasn't for my car, but we have this Miele vacuum cleaner, like one of those canister vacuum cleaners. They're not cheap. They're expensive, and it started. Like we've had it for probably 8 years, and it stopped working well. And my wife's like, "Oh, we just got to take that in and have it looked at because it's not picking up the stuff." It's like okay, and so I drop it off, and the guy calls me. He's like, when was the last time you cleaned the filter? I was like, there's a filter on that? I was like, I mean, I changed that one. He's like, no, no, the other one back here. And he shows me where it was. It was like, he showed
Oh,
me the old one, black,
oh,
and he's like, what was happening was it stopped getting the dirt, like that would be the flow through. And then what happened was now it started falling off of that and going into the motor. And
oh,
basically
yeah,
destroyed he tried to fix it like this could work for a month, it could work for a year. He goes, but this is not
pretty screwed.
yeah, you're screwed. And it did. It lasted about 3 weeks, and then
Yeah.
it stopped functioning.
And
So
that's why I do what I do, man, and why I really want to help people just understand that, hey, you got to maintain. You got to like just health education is one of my biggest missions on the planet, like I've talked about. And so I believe that we all deserve and have the right and ability to be healthy and happy.
yeah,
You
well,
just got
and
you
we
just got
need
to
to take
take
personal
it.
responsibility as well.
Yeah, personal responsibility. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's back to the Western med thing. I think our parents' generation, God, doctor was God, and it was like whatever the doctor said went, and then people started realizing, oh, that system's been hijacked. We need to actually, I'm in charge of my health. So my goal is to write a book here soon called "You Are Your Own Best Healer," and it's really just reminding people that you have the power and the ability to heal. And yes, you can find doctors and help and people to help you along the way, but ultimately, it's your responsibility.
100%. And
Yeah.
do you have a YouTube channel or somewhere where you're putting your genius out there?
Yeah, man. You can check me out on any social, Healthy New Vibes at Healthy New Vibes, on Insta or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, or you can send me some money on Venmo at Healthy New Vibes,
There you
and
go.
yeah, so that's how people can find me.
Okay, so we'll put that in the description. And your website is
Healthy,
healthynewvibes.com.
that's right.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's healthy new vibes. V as in Victor, I as in insidious, B as in boom, E as
Yeah.
in eclectic, and S as in that's sexy.
Yeah, man, raising the vibrations. That was in Chinese medicine school. I was taking a business course, and they were like, okay, it's time to come up with a name. And my last name is New, so I'm always keeping it new, keeping it fresh. And I was like, well, what am I really doing here? Like, why am I just realized I'm here to raise the vibrations on planet Earth. I'm here to help people elevate the frequencies. And so I want to create new vibes. I want to create new vibes in the world. And so that's kind of what spawned that name.
Beautiful. Love it. Before we knock it on the head here, is there anything, final words, or maybe if you were to think back, and I know it's a somewhat, I don't want to say, trite question, but we hear it a lot, like, what would you tell your younger self on your journey?
Ah,
Like knowing what you know
I
now,
love
what are
this
some
question.
nuggets that you wish you had been imparted, or maybe were imparted to you and you didn't listen?
Yeah, yeah, man. I love this. I love asking people this question too. Thanks for asking. And it's funny because every time I respond to this question, the answer is different. But I think
Mm.
that one that's commonly keeps coming up: don't smoke so much pot. I just really feel like that's why, but then it's like, okay, that's part of why I had a brain injury. But the brain injury is also what led me on the path of health and medicine today. And so it's like, do I regret anything? Was it a mistake? Yeah, it was a huge mistake. But do I regret it? Ooh, I don't know. That's debatable. So I think that right along with what pot did to me was it made me ambivalent and just not make decisions. And
Mm.
so the other advice would be just make a decision. Whatever you decide, it might lead to a different outcome or a different path, but it's all going to lead to the same outcome. You're going the same way. And so I just think smoking too much pot really made me just kind of like indecisive, and that was limiting.
Interesting. And
Um,
now, what are your feelings on then the legalization, medicinal cards, all that
yeah,
stuff? Like,
yeah,
do you find that has had that been available, or maybe it was when you were smoking? Now, well, it's going back probably 10 or 15 years for you, so maybe
yeah.
not. But what has been your relationship with that conversation?
Yeah, I still use cannabis here and there. Maybe I'll smoke maybe once a month, and then just
Hmm.
have an edible maybe once a week. I still love it. I still enjoy it, but I don't abuse it like I used to. As far as the societal aspect of it, it's exploited. It's been exploited, and it's been modified in ways where like you take one hit anymore. It's just like just blast your. It's just too much for me anyway.
Well, yeah,
And
certainly
so
the way it's
it's
produced
been
now,
hybridized and
it's
stuff.
certainly
Yeah.
more intense than,
Yeah.
back in the day.
So I do believe there's a lot of healing properties to it
Hmm.
and therapeutic aspects to it, but it don't do it like find other solutions and methods to your pain. weed is not the answer. It's not the only answer anyway, and it really
Yeah.
can. We sell CBD at my clinic, and so I do believe there's a lot of value to it. And now, remind me, where are you at? Where in the world are
South
you at?
Florida.
South Florida. Oh, okay, cool. So in Colorado, psilocybin has become
Mm.
it's decriminalized. Is the right word
Okay.
for it. And so I do believe there's a lot of value in that too. And actually, at my clinic, we sell guided meditations, and along with the guided meditation comes a therapeutic mushroom bar. And so it's just a gift. We're not selling it, which is sort of the way around it. And
Hmm.
I've just found, especially for vets and PTSD and anxiety and stuff, I've seen amazing results for people with that kind of stuff. So I do believe there's a lot of power in psychedelics, whether it's psilocybin or LSD or MDMA and other things like that,
Hmm.
and even cannabis. But don't abuse it, man. Like that's the problem is people overdo it.
Well, therein lies the paradox of choice. The
Ah, yeah,
freedom of
right.
choice, and this is where, and I think I want to honor you for also you going out and educating, because that's the key. The people don't take the time to educate themselves enough on what they're doing, and they're for lack of a better word, I guess it's a lack of maturity. So we look at kids
Yeah,
who don't know how to stop eating candy, right?
right.
Same, I think it's the same thing in a situation like that where it's a combination of maturity, education, and discipline. And
Yeah,
the biggest challenge, like people aren't lazy; they're just extraordinarily motivated to get the desired result in the smallest amount of effort. So
yeah. Quick fix.
drugs,
Uh,
whether it be pot, plant medicines, or Western meds, either way, they work quickly,
yeah. And I think one more component to that too is escapism. People are just trying to
right?
get rid of something that they haven't fully addressed. And I don't know why I smoked so much pot. I don't know if I was trying to, I just been trying to escape my pain, my physical pain. But I think that oftentimes people aren't addressing the underlying issue of why that's there in the first place, and that's their escape. And so I have a family member who's been a hardcore drug addict for 20 plus years, and I'm surprised he's still alive, honestly. But I've just kind of watched like what happened is he was severely burned at 8 months
Mm,
old, and so it he was traumatized. And then they gave him adult doses of morphine, and it at 8 months old. And so when he tried
gosh.
heroin again, it just like, oh my God, where's this been? And so, but my point there is he never addressed the underlying trauma that was there.
Yep.
And so that was the escapism. And so I see that all the time with whether it's alcohol or drugs, people just don't escape.
Well, right, and at this stage, I mean, the model that my wife and I use is around addiction. It's drugs and alcohol are not the problem; they've been the solution. But it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol. It could be internet, could be porn, it could be
Right, gambling
shopping.
or shopping, whatever. Yeah,
There's so many different vices that people have to change their state, to escape whatever non-resourceful state they think they're in. And for some people, it just maybe I'm not happy enough. I'm happy, but I could be happier, right? So there's a whole model around that, which we could go down. We'd maybe have another call on, or whatever. Just be
sure.
interesting to go down that
Yeah,
path.
you've seen it. You've been in this. You were in that
Yeah.
field for a long time.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot.
And we, the work we do now, my wife and I around that are helping people break the non-resourceful patterns and create new empowering patterns in
Beautiful.
their life. That's what it is. I mean, that's what you're doing with the helping their body, helping them create new patterns, freeing them up from the things that are potentially guiding them down the wrong path, and helping
Right.
realign those systems, those meridians, those all of that and show them how they can maintain it.
Yeah, totally. And maintain totally. That's where the education comes in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the education all comes in at the beginning, at the awareness.
Yeah, awareness. Oh man, that's something my coach has been teaching me about. Most people are in delusion. They don't
Hmm.
realize that this back pain is actually pulling them away from their kids or having sex with their wife or their job or whatever. But so as part of our initial intakes is just helping people come to the awareness of how much it's actually affecting their lives and how problematic it really is. So
Yep.
awareness, education, totally.
Yeah. Step one,
Yeah, yeah.
awareness.
Uh-huh.
Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance can be pain.
Right?
Uh,
Totally.
Love it.
Yeah.
So your website is healthynewvibes.com. Your email would be info@healthynewvibes.com. And your phone number, I have yours, if someone wants to reach out and just, you sure you want to put your number out there, is
Yeah, it's a business line. So
yeah, 720-722-3016. That's 720-722-3016. And all this will be in the description of both the podcast and the YouTube channel and all of that once we get it all out there.
yeah, and
So
there's
yeah,
that
go ahead.
contact info. I just want to just I don't know if I can help you because I don't know who you are and I haven't seen your case yet. And so what's important is that we meet. So we offer evaluations and consultations at our clinic, and would love to offer you a free one. So if you're interested in coming and just having a conversation and you're in the Denver, Colorado area, reach out to us at the information that Doug just gave. And happy just to have a conversation and see if there's ways we can actually support you in your health to get you back on track.
Beautiful. Well, any final words before we say goodbye?
Doug, I really appreciate you, brother, what you're doing for the world, or just who you are. I was watching some of your videos where you're like Tony Robbins, just get on stage, just getting
Yeah.
people like riled up. Yeah, that's cool, man. Um, yeah, I would say one of the biggest things I just want to share with the audience is you have the power. You are your own best healer. You have the power to change your life. You are the uncontested author of your life. And so write the story, man. Write the story and take the power in your own hands.
Love it. Awesome, brother. Well, I love you for who you are and who you aren't, and I look forward to more rock with you and keeping the flow going and be part of the movement of transforming the world one body at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks,
All
Doug.
righty, man. God bless. Thank you.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.